Mrs. Meadows noticed a couple of little red spots on the end of John's nose. "Look," she said to Mr. Meadows, "John has spots." Mr. Meadows leaned forward to look at them. He gravely shook his head. John tried to look too, but it is very difficult to see the end of your nose without a mirror. When John tried to look at the end of his nose, all he could see was a pink blur. "I can't see any spots, Mother," John said. "Well, I can," Mr. Meadows said. "Just because you don't see a thing doesn't always mean it isn't there. Try feeling the end of your nose with your finger." John rubbed his finger all over the tip of his nose. It felt a bit rough. "It may be measles," Mrs. Meadows said anxiously. She placed her hand on John's forehead to feel whether he was warmer than usual. "But I don't think he has a temperature," she decided. "I suspect John has been eating too much candy again," Mr. Meadows said. "Have you been eating candy this morning, John?" "Some," John admitted. "What?" Mr. Meadows asked. "Well," John replied, "well, I had a few cream delights. Susan gave them to me." "Anything else?" Mr. Meadows asked. "A little toffee crunch," John said. "And what else?" Mr. Meadows asked, beginning to look cross. John's ears grew red. He knew he wasn't supposed to eat candy before meals. "Oh, hardly anything else," he said. "John!" Mr. Meadows said, and his son recognized the tone. It meant that John had to tell everything. It turned out that John had been around to see most of his friends and had managed to get candy from nearly all of them. The list he recited was a long one. "No matter you have spots," Mr. Meadows commented at last. "I think we better take John to see Dr. Cranium," he said to Mrs. Meadows. Which sentences best summarize the text? A. John's parents saw spots on the end of John's nose. His mother thought it was measles. His dad said it was from eating too much candy. B. John has spots on his nose. His mother thought it was measles, but his father knew it was because John had had too much candy. John told them he got the candy from all of his friends, so they took him to the doctor. C. John finally told his parents the truth. He asked all of his friends for candy, and they ended up all giving him some. D. Mr. and Mrs. Meadows saw John's spots on his nose. His mother thought it was measles. His father was correct. It ended up that John ate way too much candy.